Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome to FoundFlix. On this Ending Explained, we'll be looking at the latest in the ever-expanding sea of Netflix originals, The Silence, where the world is under attack from bat gremlin things that hunt by sound, as a hearing-impaired teen and her family seek help in a remote refuge. Now, if that premise sounds familiar, it's because it is strikingly similar to A Quiet Place, with many people wondering if this is a cash grab ripoff of the popular thriller, what's referred to as a mockbuster. In this case, despite their many similarities, as well as some with Netflix's previous smash hit Bird Box, it's easy to think that's what we're dealing with here. Yet The Silence is based on a book that was released sometime before A Quiet Place, and the movie has actually been sitting on the shelf for quite some time, only for Netflix to now swoop up the rights and dump it amongst its staggering pile of other content. So it isn't technically a ripoff in the traditional sense. What's amusing is this mockbuster moniker is still perfect for The Silence. Even if it is not a ripoff, it still feels like one. A situation of almost being so bad it's good. Like a B-movie that promises cheesy good times. The problem being that everything in The Silence is played completely seriously, which left me wishing for that over-the-top inherent craziness and stupidity of those mockbusters. But as we peel back the layers behind those that wrote the movie, things become even more interesting, as the writers actually got their start working on some of these exact kinds of projects. Blatant ripoffs of popular films slapped together to make a quick buck off people that can't tell the difference between the genuine article and their low-budget copies. It's really Shane Van Dyke of the two brothers, who yes, are grandsons of Dick Van Dyke, that claims this dubious honor, bursting onto the scene and taking Hollywood by storm with his first script, Street Racer, a riff on Fast and Furious, which proudly touts being based on true events. It is true, people have driven cars before, followed by The Day the Earth Stopped, instead of The Day the Earth Stood Still. Pretty creative way to express the same idea as the original title, just by shuffling a few words around. Then we got Transmorphers, The Fall of Man, which I don't know who would be duped by that cover, because my god, and even starring Shane this time. Way to save on that budget, bro. Then Paranormal Entity, guess where that came from? This ripoff even spawning several sequels of its own. But of course, the top of the mountain, the peak of all things in motion picture, Titanic 2. What? What in the world? To have the balls to name your movie after one of the most successful films of all time with an astronomical budget just to make a crappy sequel that has nothing to do with the original, only designed to trick unsuspecting viewers into watching their garbage. All of that said, with the Van Dyke's esteemed background churning out mockbusters, when it comes to their newest effort, The Silence, it would have benefited from kind of being in on the joke in a sense, playing with and having more fun with the movie's concepts, because it ends up still feeling like a cheap ripoff of better films without any of the fun, which is kind of a bummer. Our investigation now uncovering the most likely reason Netflix picked up the film that has been gathering dust for some time, the ever-precious algorithm. This stars Kiernan Shipka from their extremely popular Sabrina the Teenage Witch update, and they obviously saw an opportunity to seize that potential audience here. Thusly, it was saved from obscurity and dumped on Netflix purely to feed the machine. This is also probably why so many people have questions about the movie and its ending, because it's shoddily written. But I will do what I can to piece together what's there, along with some help from the original book that clarifies some important things left out of the movie adaptation. So let's check out The Silence, breaking down the movie, what the monsters are and their characteristics, the not exactly subtle grander meaning behind the story, and breaking down the inconclusive ending. The beginning sets the stage for the invasion that dominates the film's world. And surprise, surprise, it's a couple of dumb humans responsible, seeing two explorers deep in an uncharted underground cave system in Pennsylvania. The two busting through to a new cave system, and they seem really stoked about it, giving each other high fives and everything. Yeah, spelunking rules! Though they will soon regret their decision to open this sealed cave when they begin to hear strange screeching sounds from the darkness below, followed by a swarm of winged creatures that ascend from the opening, chomping the two to bits before escaping through the opening above to the outside world. Well, way to go, guys! Thanks a lot for unleashing these violent bat thingies. Bet you're so happy you opened up that cave now, huh? Just had to do it! It's not until later that we actually get a good look at the creatures, but they are called vesps, short for avispa, which means wasp in Spanish, due to the dangerous nature of how they swarm together to attack. They're pretty small and not especially dangerous on their own, kind of looking like a bat gremlin like I said or something, but it's when they join together that they become much more deadly. They also have no eyes, and thusly with no way to see, they use sound to hunt their prey. Essentially, these little guys are ancient creatures that have been trapped, and evolved underground for millions of years before finally now being let out into the world. At this point, they have yet to reach Montclair, New Jersey, where we meet teenager Allie, literally walking with a giant iPad dead to the world around her, for an additional reason as she has lost her hearing after a car wreck 3 years ago. Rather than let this debilitate her, she mentions how her dad said she adapted quickly to being deaf, saying she has the power to feel those around her. Though some goober kids try to make fun of her inability to hear, she doesn't seem that bothered by it at all. Meanwhile, in town, her father Hugh and his brother Glenn are in the middle of hard-nosed negotiations related to botched work on a construction contract. As their conversation turns to Allie, it becomes clear that her father is worried about her, in particular regarding her losing her hearing, afraid that she can't survive in the world on her own, and he isn't prepared to let her go yet. Both her parents are potentially overprotective of her mom calling of news from school about Allie and her bullies, encouraging Hugh to not mention it as it would only upset her. Rather than treat her like a normal child, they see her deafness as a debilitating disability, as though she somehow is incapable of taking care of herself because of this. And if Allie lugging around an iPad while outside was just too subtle a statement on her dependence on technology, when we meet Allie's 12-year-old brother Jude playing one of those horribly unbelievable movie versions of video games, and his mom comes in complaining he has just too many electronics. I know, yeesh, kids nowadays just love their tablets and such. Why don't you go outside and fly a kite? Oh, because that's boring? Sorry to disturb you, son. Go back to your magical video games. Technology, what are we gonna do? Returning home after walking herself back from school, running into her beau Rob, mom is concerned once again about Allie, wanting to know where she's been. And when mentioning Rob, Kelly goes full mom mode on her, asking if they've kissed, to Allie's annoyance and disgust. Then something odd catches her eye, the family dog Otis barking at something outside the window. Noticing the hairs on his back are standing straight up, usually indicating a dog is in aggressive mode. But what threat could be worrying him? Alright, the bat things, of course. And it's Rob who shares a video with Allie, giving her her first look at the creatures. A massive swirling cloud of them banded together in the air, though it's only later that night that the news first picks up the story, learning that the Vesps has spread from their source at the caves and have now attacked both Pittsburgh and Philly, and other smaller towns in the areas are being attacked too, showing us the invasion is already beginning to spread. While one news channel considers the event under control, videos come in showing a different story. People running in mayhem, bloodied bodies littering the ground. Then Allie getting her big clue of how to manage the Vesps, the frightened mom wielding a sign reading "Don't make noise," which is pretty lucky for the Andrews family, who are all proficient in sign language. So it's kind of thanks to Allie's accident that they have the ability to still communicate. The news tells them to stay put indoors, to which Hugh agrees is their best bet, until Allie considers the reality that in fact cities would be the worst place to be, as there are more possible victims and sounds to lure the Vesps. So they decide to hit the road instead, intending to head north to escape the invasion. As they leave town, seeing they probably made the right call, in the distance spotting a massive swarm of the creatures looming over the New York City skyline. And just to make sure we understand everyone in town is doomed, we randomly follow a group trapped on a subway car, all trying to stay quiet, except one screaming baby didn't get the memo, a man nearly dragging him off the train before his mother takes him herself, slowly making her way down the tracks, then stopped cold by a distant sound, the baby beginning to cry again, causing the Vesps to descend upon the woman and the others in the subway car. So good thing they didn't stay behind. Luckily, the internet still works for whatever reason, so Allie can still get info dumps on the creatures from various news sources and still talk to her boyf, him making her promise to stay in touch and assuring her this will all be over soon. It looks like they weren't the only ones who elected to get the heck out of Dodge, the family coming across a traffic stack-up. All the roads around are completely congested, so Glenn decides to go off-road, taking the family away from major thoroughfares and into dusty back forest roads. Away from the rest of civilization, they are able to keep going, overhearing on the radio that the spread has reached more states, and their good fortune is short-lived when a group of deer cross the road, Glenn swerving to avoid them, his car careening off the side of the road, flipping wildly down a grassy embankment below. Hugh rushes to his brother's aid, but is unable to do much as his leg is caught in the wreckage, and it looks like they have no choice but to leave Glenn behind, Hugh vowing to get to a hospital to get him help, handing Glenn one of his guns before returning to the minivan. Inside, Otis begins to bark, the hair on his back standing up on end, letting us know that the Vesps are on their way here. Allie shouts to turn the engine off, all sitting in silence waiting until the first Vesp appears smashing at the window, followed by many more, attacking the weak spots repeatedly. Hearing their screams nearby, Glenn steps into action, making a triumphant sacrifice to save the family, though his actual demeanor is more like, okay, I guess I'll save him, or whatever, more than a moment of heroics. I usually like John Corbett, but something about this moment was very off. Like even he's going, man, this movie's a piece of shit. This is all the Corbett you're gonna get. Was that good? No more takes. I'm going to my trailer. The shots do draw several of the Vesps to him, doing his damnedest to fend them off, until unsurprisingly getting overwhelmed by the creatures. And as he's immobile, will be an easy feast for the Vesps. And his heroic/bored sacrifice was ultimately pointless, as Otis is still barking his head off, the sounds bringing the Vesps right back to the minivan. And Hugh has to make a tough call, ushering Otis out of the back trunk and to his fate, having no other choice to do so to save his family. Stuck in the minivan later, a Vesp stands by watching over. While the horde is gone, if they attempt to start the car, it will be all over for them. Before continuing on, Hugh creates a way to lure away even more of the Vesps, setting Glenn's car on fire, the explosion taking several creatures with it in the blaze. Heading out on foot, they stop for a break when Grandma isn't doing so well, and Hugh takes the time to apologize for having to kill Allie's dog. But it's little Jude who finds the location of their next random encounter, a fenced-off cabin nearby, which, okay, upon further inspection, even looks like the farmhouse from A Quiet Place, which really shows just how much they have in common, even if only a coincidence. Pretty dead on here, kinda weird. Attempting to open the gate sets an alarm off, bringing out the angry old owner lady, going full get off my lawn here, with a shotgun and everything. Of course, her threat brings the Vesps, causing her to get munched to death by a pack of the monsters. So I guess this lady was completely oblivious about what the heck is going on here, because otherwise she's just a huge moron. Oh, whoops, me screaming brought the monsters that hunt by sound. The Vesp busy feeding on her carcass, Hugh sneaks through a drainage pipe emerging on the other side of the fence, tiptoeing past the still feeding critters to get inside the house, waiting for the others to come through. Their trek is much less smooth than his. Jude stopped by a rattlesnake in the pipe, a Vesp flying in and snatching it up, as another dive bombs from the other side, slamming down on Karen's leg and gashing her. Hugh turning on a wood chipper proves to be a smart idea, the Legion foolishly flying into the blades and getting mulched with zero consideration. So I guess these things are kinda dumb. Kinda really dumb. At least it worked, the whole family getting inside, but Mom's leg is causing her severe discomfort. Dad getting to work on tending to the wound, which looks really bad, as though the scratch kind of infects out from the original bite marks. Like, yeah, she gonna be dead soon. At least amongst all the terrible things going on, the internet is still functioning perfectly, allowing Allie to contact the distressed Rob. Coughing and breathing heavily, asking where his parents are, he reveals they're dead. Allie telling him to get out of there and find them, but the call disconnects before she can say where they are. Oh well, so much for Rob, at least I can still check my news feed. Allie discovering articles with headlines like, "They are the cure, we are the disease." Oh, gotcha, we're going for mankind is truly the monster thing or whatever, yep, got it. Kelly's leg is most certainly infected, only getting worse, as Grandma says she only has a few days without antibiotics. With none to speak of in the house, Hugh and Allie are forced outside on a dangerous mission in search of supplies to save her, coming across an abandoned downtown area adorned with graffiti like "shh" written, "Thanks for the warning." It's a random turtleneck wearing weirdo watching them down the street that they should be more concerned about. The whacked out pastor from a local church, as we learn in a minute. Getting through the back door of a pharmacy, Allie and Hugh are horrified by the putrid smell in the air, seeing the source, a bunch of mangled, chewed up corpses strewn around the store. Though we see the bodies are still serving a new kind of function. Allie approaches a body, noticing that it is convulsing, spotting eggs burrowed into the chest cavity, along with all the other bodies being filled with tiny Vespa eggs, seeing how they can quickly reproduce and spawn more to aid in their speedy invasion. A few of the creatures fly inside, perching above on the shelves, as one begins to sniff the air. Looks like they're gonna need to figure out a plan and quick. Allie spotting a fire alarm, knowing the sound would allow them to escape. Hugh sets a mop ablaze, jamming it towards the sprinkler, triggering the alarm. The sprinkler beginning to rain down, the sound causing the Vesps to fly around erratically, unable to focus on their sounds as they sneak back outside. But there's another threat waiting for them, the weirdo priest guy, asking for them to join his flock, referring to themselves as the Hushed. They try to leave, getting a weird vibe from the guy as he gets more aggressive with his recruitment, and seeing why his followers are called the Hushed. The pastor has cut off his own tongue. If you can't talk, you can't get attacked. Good thinking. or just don't talk very much and be careful. No need for self-mutilation in my opinion, but their mission is success. Mom is given her much needed antibiotics, and Allie has new information about what's going on in the grander picture. There is some hope to escape the invasion, learning that people far north of the Arctic Circle have survived. The Vesps apparently can't survive in the extreme cold. On the flip side, their overall situation is becoming more dire as time is running out. Talking of areas where electricity has been lost, called the Gray, people there have been completely cut off from the outside world. These entire regions essentially being wiped off the map. Clearly the damage is only going to get worse from here. Hugh noting that it's like we're back in the Dark Ages, which sounds about right. Jude informs everyone that a new visitor has arrived at the doorstep. The batshit pastor, and he's brought some friends. Hugh decides to sort this out, calmly informing them the family doesn't want to join his church of stupid weirdos. The pastor then reveals the real intention of his visit, writing the girl is fertile, intending to use Allie as a starting point to repopulate the new world. So again, making clear the whole idea they're going for with the pastor's actions, that whole man is truly the evil one chestnut, fresh as ever. This sends Hugh inside to retrieve a gun, hearing Vesps in the distance begging them to stay silent, and the crew simply walks off. But of course, this won't be the last we hear of these jokers, since they're an actual threat, unlike the stupid bat gremlin things. They're not even a real villain. Later, Allie is surprised by a new message coming from Rob, alive and well, heading north to a place called the Refuge. But that pesky internet in the middle of the woods that they probably wouldn't even have if this wasn't the end times disconnects as usual at the worst moment before she can find out where this supposed refuge is. Soon after, the family is duped by another visitor, a sweet, innocent little girl it appears, but this one is undercover and a part of the Hushed, who is strapped with a bomb of sorts, a bunch of iPhones strapped to her chest, and all with alarms set to go off in unison. This is almost too corny for me to handle, this being a metaphor equating an actual bomb to the dangers of technology. Ugh. The alarms sound on the girl all at once, including even more tape to the house's outside windows, instantly bringing the Vesps to the house. Hugh collects all their phones, dunking them in water, and ceasing the noises, but the Vesps are still attacking from every angle. Then a second series of alarms are triggered, the creatures about to burst through, the family rushing down to the basement for safety, only to find more Hushed goons down there waiting for them, attempting to take Allie. The family do their best to stand their ground, yet ultimately are overpowered, but Grandma isn't giving up yet, chasing them down outside. She throws herself at the dudes getting onto the ground, allowing Allie to escape their grasp, and Grandma, in an extremely over-the-top melodramatic moment, screams out, the Vesp attacking, everyone in the pile getting chewed up to bits to save Allie. But instead of running or going back inside or doing anything, Allie stands there like a fool, allowing the priest and the rest to grab her again, dragging her away. Sorry you died for nothing, Grandma, thanks anyway, appreciate it. The rest of the family throws down against them, saving the day again. In the fight with the priest, Hugh gets stabbed, but absolutely obliterates him to death. Another message moment. In order to save Allie, the family, especially Hugh, were forced to tap into a more violent, primitive part of themselves, having to lower themselves to the followers' level to survive, ultimately losing at least some of their own humanity in the process, as they are now killers, even if 100% justified. He even initially holds himself back, looking to the mother and daughter, before revenge pushes him to kill the pastor anyway. Even though everything up to this point has been non-stop trouble, it seems to be smooth sailing going forward from here for the family, as without incident, they make the entire rest of the trek north to the refuge. In the final scene, seeing Allie has been reunited with Rob, on the hunt for Vesps with bows and arrows, as she ruminates on the state of the world going forward. They know the creatures don't like cold, but considers what happens if they evolve as they already have in the past, vowing that it's up to us to adapt first and remember what separates us from the chompy little bat guys. To summarize the whole intention with the story here, when you boil down humans to their core, we are idiots with no self-control. Starting with unleashing the Vesps, the book makes it clear that they were specifically looking for these ancient caves, so it's our own curiosity that is responsible for them being unleashed and, destroying the world. Strike one for humans, literally opening up Pandora's box just to see what's inside. And pretty much everyone the family encounter reflect the worst of humanity. The kids making fun of her disability at school, a guy who tries to take their car at gunpoint, a guy on the subway ready to toss out a little baby to save his own skin, the crazy old lady who is ready to kill on sight. Apparently, humans are just terrible. Then, of course, the worst of humanity is represented by the creepy pastor guy. As soon as society falls, people will turn to more primal methodologies to survive in the new world, willing to forcibly kidnap Allie just to repopulate the world with their new insane ideals. Additionally, everyone is attached to their smart devices and technology. Allie's still obsessing over FaceTime and news articles. Even though the world is collapsing, we just love technology so much. We can't control our obsessions. And there's something about it too that Allie's window to the world is through a screen rather than an actual window. All the news that she gets is through her iPad, not through the real world. Sound familiar? The key being, as Allie points out in the end, is to remember what makes us different than these violent creatures. It's up to us to adapt as a species, rather than allowing us to fall into the same traps of our own primal nature over and over and over again. It's not exactly the freshest statement, as we've seen the same concepts in many movies of the ilk, but there you go. This brings us to the conclusion of this ending explained on the silence. I do wish it had done so much more than what we were given, and had the potential to do something different than the multitude of apocalyptic scenarios we've already gotten on the silver screen so far. But unfortunately, the silence fails to do anything new or interesting. Just a monster B-movie, but without any of the fun. Don't forget, you can send me requests for TV shows or movies of any kind you'd like to see me explain by sending them my way on any of my social media accounts at FoundFlix. What did you guys think of the silence and its ending? Did you like this or Bird Box better? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow. Thanks for watching FoundFlix. See you next time.